Simon?
We're waiting on Taylor?
I don't know. Let's go ahead and get started.
We don't need a quorum for this, right?
No. Hopefully he's soon.
Is it time? We got 1 minute.
Just in case.
Yeah. All right. Call to order. We have an agenda in front of us. I will hear a motion to approve, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, everyone's in favor. We have the minutes from the April 3rd hearing. I will hear a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Staff report?
I don't have a staff report other than to say thanks to Stuart for taking one for the team and going to, he's going to preservation boot camp next week, fulfilling the training requirement for this commission for the year. So, thank you, Stuart.
I'm looking
That
forward
is
to
a
it.
team
Where is it?
player. That is a true team
Yeah, 2
player.
years in a row.
The
Yeah.
beautiful city of Jackson.
Stuart's really holding it down in terms of training for this commission.
You get combat pay for going down there.
Yeah.
Truly.
I don't remember.
Do we have a meeting in April?
We might have been canceled.
Yeah, I don't think we did. So the date on this is actually, that's a good catch.
No, we were canceled in March. And we,
No, I think it was April. Because I texted you, I was like, oh my God, I missed the meeting.
yeah, it should have been approval for the minutes from March.
March, okay.
Yeah, that's right. It was correct on mine, but mine.
Good
Okay.
catch.
Oh my God.
Good
It's
catch.
like, wait.
Well, do you guys want to approve the March minutes then, since there weren't minutes for April?
Yes. What was the date?
March 6th.
March 6th.
2023.
All right. I will hear a motion to approve the minutes from the March 6th.
So
meeting.
moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, we had an administrative approval of case number 429A, COA requested by Harrison's to install wood cabana structures in place of the existing tents located at 1210 Harrison Avenue. That was an administrative approval. We have no actual cases. We have a complimentary review, much anticipated, of the Yoknapatawpha Arts Council for a proposed addition to the Powerhouse Community Arts Center. And I believe that Dale and John from Beard Riser are here as well. Is there gonna be there's no introduction from Kate for this. All right, so y'all just come on up and tell us what you wanna tell us.
Good afternoon. I'm Dale Reiser. This is John Beard, Beard and Reiser Architects, and we are excited to share something we've been working on with the,
I'm sorry, could I stop you for a second? This TV is not on
yeah.
for us. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
Dan.
no, fine. Working on this with the Arts Council for a good bit now. Sort of as COVID cropped up, we sort of really got ramped up through a National Endowment for the Humanities grant they received. And we just wanted to run it by you all to let you give us some feedback or just look. And do you want to wait for that? So we provided a lot of support documentation and backup documentation at the front, just sort of to describe context, history of the building, some of those things. I don't know that, unless you all want to go through those one at a time, I thought we would just sort of move forward to the drawings and
It's your show, yeah.
talk about that. You know, we obviously have worked with, and this has to get, in addition to this commission approval, we need Archives and History. It'll go to them, Hal Bell down there, and then we can submit the section 106 to really keep moving on this. The neighborhood context, I think, is important to talk about just a bit, especially, it's really on the edge at University there of the historic urban core district right now. I mean, the shed sort of forms an edge, not a great edge. And so one of the things that we've talked about as we've developed this idea is creating a more urban feeling edge to the campus. And you know, that's image on the right. I should point out the city is going to develop a pocket park in that area, that whole parking area. They're going to design a plaza parking area and pocket park with green space, and also to handle stormwater retention, which is going to be a big issue on this. And obviously there's not much green area to send that water. So just understand that. And that's not been, so that plaza has not been reflected at all in any of these designs. We've really just focused on the building at this point.
Yeah, basically working the same footprint as the shed.
Yeah, it's really the only, and we looked at several options, but there really is no way, was no way to do it feasibly and economically, and you know, turning the corner on University just didn't seem right. I do think there's some, you know, there's a lot of traffic on University. It's busy. And so having an open space and an indoor-outdoor space that's protected, I think, is going to be a good thing, and it's certainly something that the Arts Council wants, is to be, I mean, they already have their kids programming and summer programs where those kids are out in that space. And I think connecting that to a new building is something they really wanted to do, to essentially double their sort of, you know.
And, you know, early on, we looked at some options where you actually fill in the corner, you know, you actually fill back in the core in the corner. But quickly realized it really starts to overpower, you know, the existing powerhouse. So they ended up bringing it back where the shed is, and leaving that corner open. It seemed to make a lot of sense.
And I think the area and that general area around it, you know, parking is obviously an issue, but we do have the city surface lot up above, and you know, there is an ADA access point down to the sidewalk street level. We're just not going to be able to provide adequate, there's no street parking, we're not going to be able to provide any adequate parking on the ground level other than, you know, what we talked about with the city is accessible parking, and then a drop off at the front door loop kind of thing, and then, or turn around circle, and then probably, you know, truck delivery access and fire truck access, fire engine.
Keep in mind, as you're looking at this, it's still conceptual. This is still a concept. There are a lot of things to do like that. So it looks more finished than it actually is.
As we talked before, I mean, I think people are pretty pressing in this area, especially with programming. You know, the city hall lot is not too far away, so the southern lot is not, you know, it's just a block or two away, so
Yeah.
it's not too far away.
And Nukes, I mean, people do park at Nukes and hop across. I mean, it's, you can find parking, so yeah, but it's not optimal, as in, you know, everyone who brings their kid in the summer is not gonna be able to park there. And Wayne Andrews vociferously reminds
Can I
me.
just
Yeah.
ask a clar- So the parking that you're talking about is what we already have? So nothing will change with the parking?
Well, the public parking lot above is gonna be, yeah, that'll be,
Gonna be what?
but at the ground level, we're not, where the
But
entrance
above,
is,
The parking's gonna be the same
that
amount?
same, yeah.
So
right.
you really got the same as what you have right now?
Well, yes, and I mean, right now, people do park on that gravel section, sort of in the corner, bottom corner, which Wayne says was never supposed to be parking. It wasn't approved as parking, but people park there anyway.
But they are providing an entry.
Yeah,
at the
we're,
grade level of parking on it.
Oh, okay.
We should have gone there, yeah.
yeah, we will have
Okay.
downstairs parking at that level still for handicap accessible older folks, inclement weather, drop off, and fire engine, that sort of thing. But you won't be able to sort of, you know, if you don't have a sticker, you're not gonna be able to just park there forever with your kid.
I would suggest, I think that's what John's trying to do, I would suggest let's move through sort of the design
Yeah.
and then circle back on detail
Right.
questions.
Driving forces is the connection from that upper parking lot. So you're trying to negotiate these two levels. So the one thing that we've done, you can see
And, you know, that bridge, we call it the bridge, it's been a connector, it's been, I would say, a key, not problem, it's been an issue. And Wayne, I think, and the Arts Council folks have talked about doing their Arts Council Hall of Fame in that area along the wall, where we're going to locate donor wall on one side too. So I think that will be a good entry point. You know, the downstairs space is the core maker space, is sort of what all this is centered around. On the right, you have a entry. Well, let's just go, yeah, the vestibule entry. And again, we are going back in the footprint of the shed and the 1950s falling down addition storage area, which is in really bad shape. So that is being removed in this, so all the new floor plan over to the left, to the east of the original powerhouse.
So
will
that's,
be
just
new.
to clarify, that's the area that says classroom.
Yeah.
It's kind of that
Yeah.
real skinny rectangle.
The
area.
mechanical room, that piece, it just replaces what's there now.
Okay.
And I think we were trying to reuse the door openings, and it will open into, as you go left through the vestibule, you'll still be able to either go into that storefront door that on the front, you know, we're putting a canopy over it and covering it up with a vestibule, but you'd still be able to go in and come in that entry into what's now their office space, or you'll come around to the left and go through a corridor, a connecting corridor. So one thing we were really cognizant of and wanted to make sure that we did not do was make this feel like two separate buildings. Like the powerhouse is one thing and the Humanities Center is something else. And they, you know, they have different programming needs, but it's blended. Mostly they just need space for all of the programs that they run, and they run so many different things now, and have the potential to do even more. And that maker's space on the right end there, that has the opening doors that open out so they can do indoor, outdoor activities, is kind of the key. That's the economic hub, the creative hub generator that Wayne talks about. And then having an additional, we're not calling it theater, we're calling it multi-flex purpose. It's just another space where if he's got kids programming, he just needs to turn 30 kids loose in there, he can do that. We can put away the chairs. It gives him an option when the theater space is tied up. He can do a different, you know, a wedding reception in one place or the other and not have to shut everything down because of one event. Community meeting spaces, we tried to mix in some art studios. When we did our programming and all of our upfront stuff, we got a lot of talk about art studios, and that was the number one thing people wanted. Was the art community wants art studio. If they had art studios that they could use or rent or camp out in and leave some stuff, that would be ideal for them. But it's not an art center, so we're not, but we have mixed in some of that, and with locker space where they can store things in that, and you know, area. And then upstairs, it's really just open space, mixed multi-purpose space, with 3 artist residents at the end for residencies, humanities residencies, and that was something the NEH really, I think, was interested in having, so that you could bring, and it's kind of what they're doing out at Faulkner's Farm. That's a big need here in Oxford. With, you know, there's so many people come here for research, and you know, those are extended stay hotel room size. They're not, you know, large by any means, but we get 3 of those in there, and that, I think that was a critical important. So these elevations, I mean, that's straight on. These are just rendered elevations. You can see the Edison there on the left.
The 3D is on.
Yeah, it's probably easier to explain and visualize from the three-dimensional.
In a nutshell, the way that we approach it is we look at this powerhouse and the way that it's constructed and sort of its aesthetics, and we wanted to create something a little more contemporary, a little more artistic, but that sort of spoke the same language. So if you look
I think fenestration, you know, and the NEH recommendations for a new addition to a historic building are very explicit that you don't, the one thing you shouldn't do is copy the historic building. Don't try to make an extension of it and make it look like it's the historic building just extended. It needs to be different, separated. It can be whatever style you want, but it does need to have some reflection to the original building, fenestration, materials, color pattern, all those things. And so we've tried to do a very restrained material palette, one, cost, two, again, speaking the same language. Powerhouse is it's brick and concrete. That's really it. That's all they use.
And keeping in mind, it's an art center, the humanities, there needs to be an edge to it.
What do the corners look like on the existing powerhouse? I'm having trouble remembering them. Are they hard corners? Because the new addition looks like pretty hard to me compared to
The concrete, yeah, there's concrete corners in, I don't know, go back to the
I'm thinking
original.
something more rounded, at least working off of memory, but it's failing every day.
I think it's a square concrete column. I think there's a photo back at the beginning that shows the,
I believe it's a hard concrete corner.
yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you can zoom in on that, I think. And I didn't know this until we researched this. Frank Gates was the architect. We did get the original drawings. Mississippi State had them scanned. He was 22 when he did this building. And the front half, the 3 bays, was the original powerhouse. I didn't know that. They actually did the back or north addition in 1945 to expand it. And then 7 years later, TVA came in and was like, we'll handle electricity, so you don't need the powerhouse to generate power anymore. So it became a storage building. And that led to the tacked on additions in the shed kind of until Tom's addition of the workspace in 2012, which was, really a good addition, appropriate addition. But most of that along that, what was the backside of the powerhouse was the main entry door with the engraved stone was that front white door facing Nukes on 14th. But that was in 1930. That was out. That wasn't in town. That wasn't there. It was very wooded. If you find 1940s photographs of Oxford, there's nothing out there. It was a gravel road.
Looking at some of these renderings, our addition does look fairly complicated and complex. And I would just say that, typically what's going to happen as we move through the process, it's going to simplify itself. It's going to get cleaner and simpler and more to the point.
Yeah, I like your nod to the multi-pane windows because that's what I think about in the powerhouse. It's not so much the arches, it's the.
And they do those. We've researched the. And of course, you can do steel windows, but they're Hope's different brands, and they're fairly expensive. But National Park Service does have various manufacturers and windows that they do approve that are aluminum, but steel. They look like steel, so they will look from a distance. You won't know the difference, but they're obviously for cost purposes these days. Yeah, the profile and the glazing and everything will be the same. So,
But this being an addition, you have a lot more leeway. You're not having to rebuild.
yeah, we don't have to. I
historical
think it's just the fenestration probably is the biggest nod from us to, the windows, because again, I think I'm like you. It's brick columns and brick. Just concrete column. The brick. The windows. It's one of the only details.
Ideally, if the budget would allow, I think we would love to see stucco that matches the powerhouse, brick that matches the powerhouse, steel windows that matches the powerhouse, but in a very different language. Don't know that we'll be able to afford all
Yeah,
that.
and there are, alternate materials. We could use EFS for the, instead of the stucco, and, it's up high, it won't be touched, so John has said that's probably the best application in the world for EFS.
think it's the only one that's acceptable by our ordinance too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it necessarily. That's one of my least favorite things in the world, but,
And Powerhouse, you mentioned stucco like the Powerhouse, but Powerhouse, it actually is concrete.
it's concrete,
yeah, it's
yeah.
cast in
They
place.
didn't, there is no I mean, they just literally infilled with
brick,
block behind the brick, and, it's as simple as that.
It's industrial.
It was industrial, yeah.
Afford a concrete frame?
Right.
Yeah.
Again, if we can, probably creating a frame that feels like the concrete frame,
Mhm.
you know, that might be a different material. Again, that's all kind of where the intention is, to have it feel like that frame.
And that's all for us to discuss here today too, what our
Yeah.
reaction to that is.
And
So-
again, and we've said that to Wayne and everyone. Wayne and the board, I think, are really happy with the floor plan. They feel like it nails all the programming needs they have. They understand, if you got that money, we haven't really priced this out yet. It's a goal, and it always has been, working with certain budgets. And, I mean, Stuart, you know what's happened the last year or two with construction cost, home residential stuff, period. It's all just crazy. So, but hopefully by the time fundraising commences and we get to that point and we're ready, this is especially three-dimensionally and elevation, and, it's a work in progress. We consider it conceptual. I know like John said, it looks a little more finished than it is, but I don't want you all to think that's the final building or that's what we're building, because it will look very much like that, I think. But again, we're going to have to really play with cost, materials, and do something. But I think in general, the vein is something that is appropriate to the powerhouse.
Okay.
That's for y'all.
Yeah.
Right. Well, in complimentary reviews, I think that first it's, y'all tell us what you want to tell us, show us what you want to show us, ask us questions you have direct, hey, what do you think about this and that? And if you don't have any of that, then we'll start babbling about our reaction.
We want to hear you babble.
Okay.
I mean, that's,
Well, I'll open it up to other commissioners to give any reaction or ask any questions they might have.
and this was the last image, that is the entrance from that public surface lot above where the old rec center, the old rec building was. Again, we try to just extend, yeah. And I think,
You had listed a list of concerns. I wonder if we could go over those concerns.
you want our concerns?
You listed, you have
Oh,
a
yeah.
concern list, and one of them was the traffic and the parking.
Go back to the
But
site
there are
context,
others.
Ben, back to to that site context and zoning map. Yeah, site parking from the get-go,
Constraints.
it's a constraint. That's
Sorry,
what,
Sorry,
that started the whole conversation.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, well, yeah, we can pick the, metal shed up and pretend it's not there and go back with another building, but there are codes, there's zoning ordinances, we have to meet that we don't know what was followed when that shed was built in 1977. It's clearly not, I don't think they have adequate parking as it is now, honestly.
Are they required to provide parking? What's their zoning? No, not required to. Yeah. Okay.
And they use that shed for heavy equipment. There's never parking for trucks and cars
Yeah,
and stuff.
well, they have tons of things stored in that shed. It's, one car, usually Wayne, will pull up under there, but again, in the summer, they try to clear it as much as they can. But they have a lot of storage stuff, so that's gonna be a big deal for them to handle during construction. And when that shed comes down, they're gonna have to put that stuff somewhere. I mean, it's gonna be an effort to get the shed demolished. And I think we've talked with the city about some in-kind donation work for the grant, because it's a match, and that helps them. The more the city can kind of help with, and labor or whatnot, and can do, they get credit for that in their grant.
So those constraints, I think, are really just, they're things that we need to really address and deal with, things that are driving it.
I think originally back in the fall, you guys had approved a 2.5-story building. We don't need that extra half. I mean, that would just add cost, and I'm not sure what we were thinking at the time. I think the thought was we would go up and do a roof-type garden on top of the building. And as we started designing it, we were like, we're not gonna do 2.5 stories. 2 stories is good. And honestly, we may have to carve out some of the second floor into, atrium space or non-built kind of space with a skylight above or something in order to reduce cost. I could see that being an issue.
So I think today we're looking for feedback because there's a lot more stakeholders and things we normally see at these meetings, right? You're gonna get approval by NPH.
Yeah.
You got the grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities, and all of those bodies also have this type of review.
Yes, it's a
So if
domino.
there's anything that is concerning to the commission, we wanna keep you in the loop and know what
Right.
needs to be changed so that they're not stuck with a design that doesn't work for us but works for NEH.
And I guess the real goal is just to, based on what you see, what is your sort of general attitude
Yeah.
towards it?
Well,
Are we at a comfort level, or are we not, are we pushing the envelope too much?
Yeah, so I'll just start maybe asking questions to prompt commissioners, maybe to get conversation. So I think that what they may be looking for from us is materiality. What's our reaction to the stucco and the glass, the little bit of brick? It looks like some wood elements that you've got at the entryway, maybe.
Yeah, just a small amount of wood as a complementary type material, really.
So materiality, they might be looking for feedback from a massing standpoint, the height of the building, the feel of it from the street, the scale to the existing.
The side that butts up to the Edison, you can't see it.
Yeah, that's that eastern facade, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, and we have to make some assumptions. I mean,
Yeah.
the Edison may or may not be there 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Right now it is. I had an office in there. It's a great space, but it's right on the boundary line, and the powerhouse shed is sort of right. I mean, there's like maybe 5 feet between, and there's a very important drainage flume from the back of the powerhouse that feeds to the street. It's all the stormwater goes there.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Is that why you limited the windows
Yeah.
on the east
Yeah,
side?
because-
Like you cannot anticipate?
And if you've got our normal steel window that we used on the front elevation, on the ground level, and it would be great to have in that maker space especially, we really wanted to have as much natural daylight as we could get there, but the problem is you're gonna be looking like 10 feet away at the Edison's.
Are you building 10 feet from the property line?
We backed it up some at Ben's recommendation to make sure that we had room for any equipment or any, gas meters, anything that had to go in along that utility. Most of the utilities run along University, but they're inevitably, I think, we'll need some space along that outside edge.
So
we
there
did-
is gonna be kind of an alley slot between you all and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Edison. Okay.
Currently there, it's, except that right now, that width is completely taken up on the Edison, on the powerhouse side by that concrete flume that's about this wide. That is just a gutter. It's a big gutter to the street,
Yeah.
and like all the storm water from,
And again, as we
Above.
get into this, if we find out that the building actually has to shift further inward, or,
Right.
we just haven't gotten that far.
Yeah.
What about the height of the building?
The height right now is based on trying to set that second floor level at that upper parking.
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
creates a fairly tall space.
It looks really large compared to the neighbors there, that picture.
I don't remember the elevation difference. Do you remember the elevation
I
difference?
don't. I think it was just under 18 feet total from the parking, or from the edge of the parking spaces where we would come in to the grade at.
So that means the first floor is roughly 18 foot sort of volume, which works great for a black box theater or multi-purpose space or whatever, but they're kind of, generally set on that. I mean, the only other option would be that as you come into that entrance is you step down or move down, and then let the building sort of roll.
And we, that Hall of Fame, the bridge, you know, that, I don't know, right now, are we ramping that, John? I don't remember that. Is that ramping that?
No, it's all
Right now, it's just a straight connection, as long as we can meet ADA, you know, with our slope. We could ramp that so that, you know, we could start to lower the building at the powerhouse.
deceptive as well, because you're kind of looking at it like this, as opposed to
Right.
like that. But it is small, there's no question.
It is taller, yeah, than the powerhouse, and, I don't know,
Maybe balanced a little bit by, on the other side of the street, you have a 2 or 3-story building over on the other side of the street.
The solo, yeah,
A little bit
yeah.
balanced.
4-story. Yeah,
There's multi-story.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of height, but my sense is, that surrounding area, I think inevitably is gonna become more urban. It's gonna become more 2, 3, 4-story hotel, boutique hotel. That's gonna be development.
Oh, I hope not.
the
Just,
the Edison is, it's within the historic district, right?
yeah, it is.
Is
It
it a
is. It's-
contributing building?
Yeah,
The hair salon is the last
Studio.
building.
the hair salon,
Okay.
that's the corner. Yeah, the hair salon and the Edison lot.
I think the Harrison is, I think Edison is listed as contributing.
So the idea that it might just be taken down is, it might be tougher than.
Converted,
I mean, it could
maybe.
it
Yeah.
could be,
It
but,
could happen, but yes, it would be tougher than if it were not contributing.
right, okay.
Do we have anything that shows the topography behind Edison? Going up to the parking lot, Google or anything? I'm just trying to get a feel of what's back there.
Trees.
It's just a big hole.
It's a gully that kind of has a lot of fallen down concrete from the back of the building and junk that, again, that storage room that was added in the 50s kind of,
We hammered on the Chancellor's house on windows on the east side of their property.
Right.
And it just really looks paltry. I understand why you
yeah,
did it,
yeah.
but personally,
No.
it looks paltry.
I would agree. We need to match what we've done on the other facades,
Yeah.
have that linear. Now, we could do that and black out, you know, the windows or something temporarily. And again, if the Edison ever changes, you could do that. Or just
Well-
let them look at the side of a building. I mean, it's not the worst. I
Right.
guess.
Actually, for one reason, I was wondering what the topography was back there, what the likelihood of anything ever being built compounded by the fact that it is on the
Yeah.
contributing property.
Well, I have an office there and parked in that Edison, at the Edison door. Generally, up until the end of the powerhouse, it's pretty much level, and then it sort of really does follow that sort of line with a hill, but there is a little bit of a gully behind the Edison and the gallery.
And y'all have, I mean, as you get into code research, you have lot line issues and the amount of fenestration you can have, you're limited.
Right.
Being close to the.
Yeah.
So, you know, every window they add, they've got to get further away from the property line,
Right.
basically. And so they're gonna be limited being at the I should let y'all talk about that, but, I mean, they are gonna be limited in the amount of
Right.
windows and stuff they can have on that property line.
So proportionally, it increases, the setback increases the amount of windows? Yeah.
Sort of, that's a way
The
to think,
daylight,
a way to
yeah.
think about it, yeah.
Which doesn't mean, I mean, we have to shift everything inwardness or over. I mean, we could just get thinner, skinnier, to a point. But,
That's really the next level.
Yeah, but your concern is not enough windows on that
On that
face.
facade.
Especially based what we
Yeah.
really required of the Chancellor's house on this side, which was a lot of windows.
and I definitely think on,
Are you talking about the side that faces Sonic?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the east side.
the east side of the sign, yeah. And it's morning light, so it's good light.
It is, yeah, that's what I was thinking it's going.
And certainly upstairs, I think in that tan area there, we could get,
Even if you went vertical like you got
we could
your
get
first three
vertical windows
drawn,
there.
it might help.
Yeah.
But I understand, you know, if you're limited, you're limited, but.
And that, you know, that image, we didn't dash in the Edison outline, but that's why, if you look at the straight-on rendering, I think it does sort of show the Edison and how much of it is covered, of our elevation is covered over that you'll never see because of the Edison unless you walk into that little, again, or unless the Edison goes away, which,
You're really only seeing the second floor peak up above it,
yeah.
pretty much.
So, and again, cost-wise, I think it's, you know, spend money on windows that nobody can look out or that sort of thing, I think was part of our discussion point on all of that. But I agree. I think ultimately we would like to have, and that's why I think we've looked at skylight options in lieu of full windows on that side too, because the east side really should, that's north and east are your, you know, your best daylighting options.
So I think you've heard a concern about fenestration on that side, about scale of the building next to the Edison at the street. We're not gonna give any solutions here, we're just sort of
Right.
giving, you know,
Yeah,
giving reaction.
Dale, I have a question.
Yeah.
The current shed,
Yeah.
do you know how that compares in height to this?
It's,
South side.
scroll back to the, yeah, actually that would be a good exercise
This one here,
to show side to side. Yeah, I don't
there's
know.
powerhouse right there.
I don't know if we've ever done a straight on. I think, and that's a little deceptive because the roof slopes. Yeah, the total building is definitely higher than the shed. I think the first floor of the proposed addition is a little bit lower than the peak of the
Yeah.
sloped.
I think you're right, I looked at that earlier. I think you're right.
Maybe a foot or two, maybe not that much, but
But the reality is, you're not building a shed, we're building
Right.
an addition, a two-story addition with a lot of function in it.
Yeah.
And
a lot. It's,
so I had maybe just a quick question, just sort of yes or no. Is the bridge going across, is that conditioned? That's interior conditioned?
The bridge will
space?
be, yeah. And that was, you know, initially, we didn't have that. It was literally a bridge. That's why we called it the bridge.
Yeah,
And you would walk across from the North Park surface lot all the way to basically the back of the powerhouse and enter the new space at that line. And Arts Council just didn't, they weren't gonna have that because of,
and so is that grade there already? Or are you bringing, do you need to fill a hole in to make that?
It's gonna be it will be literally a bridge.
Oh, literally,
yeah,
okay.
it's, you know, we'll just pop.
The area back here is a mess, it really is a hole there all around.
Okay,
It's almost swampy
Cool.
too.
I like that.
Conceptually, it will be
Yeah.
a bridge, but
We talked through a lot of different options there too, looked at coming from different,
Yeah.
different elements of that parking lot, and that's the path that leads.
It's the, and I hate to say it's the obvious, but it is kind of like, well, dang, it's the only place you can do it, you know, the only really place that you can extend it, and, you know,
So could you go to the east elevation?
yeah.
Yeah, so this does look like it's on grade until a certain point.
Yeah, and that's not right, because
Oh,
it
okay.
should, the actual grade, I would say, Stuart, probably goes from that low point behind the powerhouse and almost tracks 45 degree, or not 45 degrees, it really goes over,
Okay.
maybe up a couple of feet, and then all of a sudden, at the edge of the parking lot, it is steep
I understand.
drop, you know, it just drops off.
So it goes.
So it's a hole underneath there. Yeah, and there would be columns underneath that bridge, so, but yeah.
I think that's cool.
Conditioned
I like it.
space, they had, concerns about elder patrons,
Yeah.
rain and congregating people and things that they have behind the building there.
Okay.
So it needed to be secured, a secure entrance that's also air conditioned or, you know, heated and cooled.
Okay. You said one thing that piqued my interest. You said you did not want this to feel like two separate buildings, but to feel like one. And I mean, I think you're right. You want it to be harmonious, but I don't think you want it to feel like this was built
Right,
at the same time. And I
Right.
think you've done a good job of working with scale and proportion and detail and materiality to make it be different.
and I
But
probably
not
misspoke
foreign.
when I said I want it to feel like one. I think what I meant is I wanted it to feel harmonious. is
Like
what-
one function,
Yeah,
but not
yeah.
one same building.
Yeah, it's not a silver and glass spaceship form
Right.
tacked on to the powerhouse. It's an identifiable form that speaks to the powerhouse. They're cousins.
But you
They're
also have
brothers.
the other requirement to make sure that it doesn't copy
Right.
the existing. So you're
Yeah.
sort of, you gotta strike a balance between the two, if I'm
Right,
putting words
and
in
I,
your
you
mouth.
know, I think the worst thing we could do is try to you can't recreate the powerhouse. It's its own building, and it would not work well, I don't think, to try and just copy that. And again, National Park Service Secretary of Standards says don't do that.
How does the commission feel about that, about its, I like to use the word flavor, its sort of architectural design compared to the historic building and how this looks, you know, what you've heard them describe, you know, towing that balance, I guess.
The word that comes to me is powerful, because it was a powerhouse, and it's strong. It's got a great statement. I like it.
Thank you.
And you mentioned there was nods to the old powerhouse. Where, or did you
Yeah.
say, where, show me where some of those are?
So I think if you go to the end elevation, facing University again, really that elevation probably shows it the best, the straight on south. Yeah, go to the elevation, because again, that sort of is more a simplified version. Again, the window banding, you know, we're using the same sort of form, shape. We're not doing, you know, dinky little double hung windows. We're trying to match that rhythm.
I would probably go, I would probably go to the courtyard elevation could be the south, I guess.
No, you're west.
I think talking about, looking at the powerhouse, talking about the, you know, this concrete frame, I know we've already talked about that, but that concrete frame, when you go to look at our building, you can see that same sort of, the same rhythm. You know, if you look at the powerhouse, you've got some bay, which is concrete. We're doing the same thing. Concrete verticals, horizontals, brick infill, steel infill, so I think that's.
And the rhythm, Archives and History, when they did put this on the Mississippi Landmark List in 2003, I think it was, or I'm not sure. One of the things they specifically mentioned in their fairly short paragraph was the rhythm of that facade of the powerhouse, which was window, door, window, window, door, window. That sort of, it's symmetrical. It's not really, because that addition to the north was a little bit wider than the original footprint of the three bay.
All vertical windows can be slots. As we're doing slots in the same. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
And also that downstairs, the maker's space and that downstairs open space being sort of volumetrically. I mean, you walk in the powerhouse, you feel the height and I'm not gonna say cavernous, but you feel that it's strong. You feel that space, and you kind of walk in the doors into the theater space, and you know it's continued. And I think maintaining sort of some volume on that ground floor that would, so you don't feel like you're walking in this tiny little space over here, and then go into the powerhouse and feel like, well, this looks completely different. I think trying to maintain that is important.
I think Amanda's question is a good segue for one of the things I was gonna bring up is yes, the verticality and the rhythm, and I'm looking at this exact elevation, and when you look at it in a flat elevation, you see that vertical rhythm with what looks to be sort of a horizontal band.
Right.
But then when you see it in 3D, it's much more than a horizontal band. It's a major move of this horizontal, you know, of the roof that comes out and grabs the current entry. And so in a flat elevation, you see that rhythm with a little band. In 3D though, it really is a much bigger move of a horizontal, and I think it's gonna feel more of a horizontal, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. You know, I think it's interesting, and if y'all maybe wanna talk about that move, because to me, that move that you've made of bringing that, and what I'm talking about to my other commissioners is At the lower level, there's kind of a colonnade that builds as this thing sweeps out at an angle to then grab the current entry into the powerhouse. And it's a big move that y'all made to go horizontal versus the vertical nature of the powerhouse.
Well, I think part of that obviously is a functional, we wanted to make that, we wanted to create that entrance and create a line between the two floors. If you look at the existing powerhouse, that base and that top end.
That concrete frame is it. It's the thing. Yeah, I mean, it really was just sort of, here's the frame, and then we're gonna infill with some brick
One thing that we did.
a little bit.
Is going to help this thing to not compete with the powerhouse is that second floor, that open terrace. So when you look at this, you're really seeing the concrete frame without any infill. So you've got space behind it. And then on the first floor, you have a lot of glass. So it's almost like you're, I don't want to use the word deconstructing the powerhouse, but in some ways, you're sort of getting that frame
Mm-hmm.
with the spaces behind it. So I don't think the building is gonna feel as solid and as, heavy as the powerhouse. I think the powerhouse is still going to be the thing, it's gonna be the solid thing there, and our building sort of becomes this sort of lighter, more, maybe ephemeral, but not really.
And I think the mass of the powerhouse being such a big square, I think too, on that, and it anchors that space, I think that helps. It's interesting to me, I don't know where university was in 1930, but it's interesting that they didn't ever, or they didn't put it on the intersection, or they never really, I guess that was just a gravel lot that they parked on and stored equipment and things.
There's a couple of gins right down the street from them, so
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
they were trying to get power close to gins as possible.
So Stuart, to just really simplify the answer, it's just an expression of that floor plate.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I mean, you used a couple words that I was probably going to say, and that is that, so when I looked at that and looking at the rhythm, and to me, you really went a little more horizontal with your building with some vertical elements. And I felt like that move that you made wanted to be even, use the word lighter, even lighter. And that the main mass of the building wanted to be the vertical sort of homage to the existing, and then that move that you made sweeping out to grab, and I know you've made it light, but even lighter, like
Just a thin
so that it
bladed
really
canopy.
feels like that's the piece of
Yeah.
glass, but then you have the main mass
Right.
that has the verticality behind it.
One thought would be, if you really want to maintain the sort of the concrete sort of frame, the vertical frame, maybe that little one piece becomes a different material. Lighter, more thin, sort of.
Sure.
Scroll up just just a little bit so we get that mass model. Yeah, that. I just wanted to see the, yeah.
What is immediately below the patio area? I'm having a little difficulty.
Those are I'm not gonna call them garage doors because they're not garage doors. They're gonna be glass operable doors, well designed and appropriate for those are the doors that allow the indoor-outdoor space where they can just either slide them open or lift them open. And you could bring,
It's also functional for deliveries because there's no
Yeah.
real delivery, there's no place to deliver anything from.
All right.
So you have to use sort of those sections for.
Mhm.
I was trying to get a visual of what you're gonna be seeing when you look at it from ground level.
and I tend to agree with you, Stuart, to me, and where I react to that thick horizontal band, and I react negatively to it, frankly, is on the entrance from the public parking. I just think it's too much. I think it overwhelms that entry, and it's an extension, I think, of that canopy.
So Andy, were you
Design.
asking about the ceiling above the outdoor terrace? Is that what you were asking?
No, I was actually asking below the outdoor terrace, trying to get a feel what that was. It almost looked like a gate bar at the top from the rendition, so thank you for clarifying.
Do we have another, go to that entry, we have a slide with the entry. Yeah, right there. Wow, that doesn't really show though. Thought it would show it more, but,
It almost looks like the banding in that image, and I think it's probably just a rendering effect
So I think I've said my bit on that, and then its actual connection to the powerhouse, you've gone opaque where it connects, right? And so maybe, would you tell me why you made that move to make that connection opaque? I'm talking about where you've got some signage there, it looks
The
like maybe
wood,
it's
yeah,
a
connection.
wood finish.
I think to just have a
Can you
break.
zoom in on that at all? Yeah.
What's that?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
When you say, what area are you talking about, sir?
there where it says Yakima
wood,
Patapha
yeah, the
Humanities Center,
Right.
where it's, you know, it's all glass, that whole sweeping element's all glass, and then right where it connects to the powerhouse, it's a more opaque, solid. So what was
I
that?
know where you're going with that, your point, the obvious thing would be for it to be glass, for it to be that translucent. You know, that may be where we end up. I think part of it may have been just, again, this is conceptual.
Yeah,
Part of it may have been, you know, look, where are we going to signage? And
Right.
so let's kind of think about that. As we get into it, you know, where does the signage go? You know, it could change, but,
I do think,
raising up the building.
and from a historic preservation or addition to a historic building perspective, glass going all the way and enclosing a vestibule or atrium that enclosed and didn't have an opaque
yeah.
separator between the old and the new is something that we.
Well, that's right,
need
yeah, I
to do.
mean, you read right where I was going is,
Yeah,
I mean, we're supposed to have hyphen-like connections to existing buildings. I get why you're not, it's the backside anyway, but this would be sort of that opportunity to have that light touch to the historic structure and even maybe
Yeah.
see, I mean, I know it's the storefront there and that's new, but maybe even to see some of that through there. And so
Yeah.
it very clearly is like, hey, this was an addition that's lightly touching the historic.
and we've played,
Still meet the guidelines if it were to be glass and not.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that meets the
I think that-
intent,
yeah,
right,
I mean,
yeah.
it meets what the guidelines are getting at.
Right, I mean, it would be a hyphen, I
Yeah.
mean, if there was a bigger building just beyond it, but.
and that entrance honestly has probably been, in addition to that, the bridge entrance and how that sort of connects and looks and all of that has been another, you know, I've had it recessed. We pulled it back out, we've done every iteration, and then I think it could do whatever it needs to do. I think both ways have strengths and weaknesses if you push it in, so that it's past the powerhouse, and truly is sort of a recess. Then because we have such a skinny site where that shed is, you know, you're losing pretty valuable real estate that gets you into the building and around.
No, I personally like that you've come out and grabbed it
Yeah.
like that.
And I think, Wayne, cover your ears, but I've never liked that yellow awning and that entrance. That feels badly done, in the 70s. And that was well before you had anything to do with it. So, but I do think, correcting that with some, glass entry or something that cleans that up. It's still there, well, the awning won't be there, but, that entrance is still there. So we even maintain that connection to that 1977 history, which is quickly approaching
You
50
just
years.
remove the storefront, yeah.
So you're saying, Stuart, you think it needs to be accentuated that it's an addition? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because I mean, that's what the guidelines tell us, is that additions need to clearly read as an addition. And when you connect to a historic structure, you need to connect lightly, you know? And so like, so we, you know, when you do houses and even when you do commercial buildings like this, you want, in an ideal world, you have the existing building and the addition, and then even if it's 5 feet, a smaller connection to it so that it reads clearly as, hey, this was an addition done in 2023.
Right.
And I think that they've met the intent with materiality that it's gonna clearly read like that, but, and feel free to disagree, but I felt like that connection needed to be lighter and that you could even see the existing powerhouse through it, like the brick of the powerhouse, you could see
Specifically
through
talking about where they
it.
have that wood. that
Yeah.
wood
Yeah, where the wood sign piece is. And if you do, look at those, at the NPS, Technical Notes 14, they give some examples, and particularly in New York City and with museums where they've done that, and they've literally allowed them to, they've put glass atriums literally in front that you know, that bridges kind of a U-shaped building. So it is an acceptable means, but it still allows visual, like you're saying, it still allows visual to the original historic.
Right.
You're not hiding it with your new addition. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I like when commissioners disagree with each other because I think that it gives opinions, so.
No, I think when you step back from it 200 yards, you go clearly see that it's addition.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think you need to accentuate it anymore, but that's a personal preference. What I think is really gonna make this building break it, which is always the case, is what kind of materials you get to use. If you can absolutely soften this building, and still have a separate building, but accentuate the old powerhouse. But if that last shot that we were looking at over the entranceway, if you look at the dichotomy of the materials, it really shows that this is an addition. Because you've got hard concrete versus, I assume that's stucco. And that's gonna jump out real quick, I would think. So I think you're gonna clearly know it's an addition, whatever the entranceway looks like. Hopefully you get enough money that you can do it with concrete. Doubt that's coming, but,
The price of steel these days.
yeah.
And I do think material, again, as we work through the process, there'll be an opportunity there to soften some things. And, renderings are always a little bit difficult. I used to say when computer drawings first came around, don't ever show them a computer drawn anything because that's what they get in their mind early on. That's what you remember forever. And that's what the client thinks they're getting, even if, and now rendering, we can do like a little more realistic stuff, but I think John made a good point in the rendering style. It probably hardened up somewhat too. I don't think it's as,
I think our goal moving forward, our first goal, like I said before, is to simplify. And if you really look at sort of that vertical, that horizontal, the essence of the powerhouse, and try to simplify this building even more to emphasize that. And based on budget, it's gonna have to be simplified.
this economy is scale is gonna, like you said, the canopy is, and some of those horizontal banding things are probably going to have to a little bit, and shrinking the building down a little, I think is something that, on the upper floor, because I think we've got the height there to do whatever we want to up above. If we can ramp that and at least lower the portion that you see from the powerhouse forward, frankly, behind the powerhouse or north of the powerhouse, the front wall of the powerhouse, it's gonna be mostly hidden. Most people will never see that, except from the other approach. And you probably won't see much of that because of all the trees and stuff under that blue, which I think it looks like we photoshopped that out of this image. There's a water tower there, blue water tower, and it does show up in the other images, but yeah, it's not in that image. And it's a waypoint. I mean, it really is. We've had this issue at other places where we talk about in universities and such, and they're like, well, but it's what we use to kind of find our way around the campus, that go to that water tower and you know where you are. And
Y'all give some idea for mass purposes about how wide this is? I mean, when I say wide, you're looking at it from the south side, looking at the north, just basically the width of it. And then the length I can visualize, it's really not gonna be that big of a building.
no, it's I don't know if that elevation. I mean, it's
You still have a lot of dirt to work with.
yeah, no, not much at all. And
Google Earth tells me the existing shed is 42 feet wide.
yeah, that's about right.
Thanks.
By like incredibly long.
It's pretty narrow. Not a lot of room to work with.
No.
That helps.
Huh?
That helps.
42 feet is not large.
It's pretty narrow. I mean, your typical commercial depth is 60 to 70 feet.
By the time
so
you build
this
in,
is-
yeah.
It's not deep. Ben, you,
Yeah, just one comment, and it's something that Dale, Kate, and I have had some conversations, and looking at this view, I think it's important to notice, and this is not really architecture related, but it's more site specific and a challenge of this intersection, this corner, getting in and out, some elevation, some grade differentials. And what you can see here is they are working to lower some of those grade differentials.
Yeah.
Now, Dale, if you want to talk about that, I just can tell
Well,
you
that-
from
And I think one thing we've talked about with the city is, because one of the real problems now seems to be this curb cut entrance along University, and there's potential to maybe just get rid of that and only have the entrance coming off of University. So it's a little, one, maybe a little safer, especially because you're gonna have kids in and out and that sort of thing, or different programming things you don't necessarily want. And I think maximizing that space for, again, outdoor wedding receptions, different things like that is gonna be.
So it's gonna be a
key.
park-like space, not more,
Right.
not an automobile-like
I
space.
think it'll end up feeling like an urban park, urban plaza, I think is what it's marked.
That was one question I
in-
did jot down, is will that end up being a part of this case, or is that gonna be a separate case we're gonna hear about the plaza design?
Hardscaping and all of that does come before the commission, so I would assume when they're further along in the plans, they're working with Mark on it. It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah, you had
city
mentioned
working
that.
on it, so
Okay.
that will be a part of the overall approval.
Okay.
And the city will be doing the stormwater and, yeah, all of the hardscape basically, on the ground level. And I guess whatever we do up above, there's some connection there where, you know, we'll have to meet. But yeah, we are gonna lower that. If you look at it now, there's a pretty substantial drop along from the parking and sort of where the original parking area of the Powerhouse was, down that gravel lot, and then as it drops to the street particularly, that slab for the shed it's, you know, a good 18 inches above grade. And again, part of that is, you know, the street, I'm sure they scaped it, formed it to get the, from the street level up to the building. And we are intending to sort of level all that out, or smooth it all out.
So you've heard some detailed feedback, I think. I guess if there's more detailed feedback, let's have it. Otherwise, maybe kind of an executive summary from each of us of, you know, like it, don't like it, you know, sort of a general reaction, I think, to what we've seen. Unless y'all have more, I mean, you know.
No,
sounds like-
and our hope is, you know, we have to get approval from you all, formal approval at another meeting, which may or may not, it could be next month. And then at the same time, once you've all approved it, it'll have to go to Archives and History for their review and approval. And then we can send it to National Parks for their, or NEH for their approval, and National Parks, Section
When will
106.
you know what your final budget is?
Well, once we're approved to move forward with the rest of the design, I think the very first thing that I think, two things we talked about. One, running a code, a real, absolute, true, and complete code analysis, particularly for fire and sprinkler, that sort of thing. And then a cost estimate is, by the end of May was my hope, is it, you guys would,
That's when the what?
yeah, that's when the second floor comes off. And no, just kidding.
And it's
Wayne's back there.
common for
He's staring at me.
there to be changes, and let's say you get through MDH, but there's an issue with Section 106 or whatever, and you would
Yeah.
come back to this
Yeah.
commission with a request.
Yeah, and we are, I mean, we're a recommended provider. We work with Archives and History a lot. We know those guys very well, and we have a good relationship with them, and they know we're not gonna buck the trend and just go off and do whatever we want and then say, why didn't you approve that? So, and we, you know, hope we would work that way with you all too, and not just, you know, go wild. So, but the sooner we can get the Section 106 approved, and again, that is based on a concept, I think. You don't have to have absolute construction drawings for that.
Okay.
Site plan is probably the big missing piece right now. I would say that we have some sort of idea, but we don't really have a schematic or concept level for that park area. I would like to have, but I don't know that Archives and History will have a problem with that.
You never know what they'll zero in on, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, my sort of executive summary of my feelings and thoughts, I like the general flavor of it. I feel like you've struck the balance between contemporary, but also respectful of the historic nature of it. I do agree that the scale, I mean, I get the urban wall, the desire to create that building at the street, but I do feel like the scale, in particular next to Edison, which we know is a contributing structure in a historic district, is pretty big. I don't know what the answer is to that, and maybe there is no answer, but I do agree, my gut feeling is it's pretty massive, and I don't know if it's the articulation or the size itself. That's for y'all to kind of weigh my comment and figure out what you want to do, if anything, on it. But I mean, generally, my feeling is, I think it looks nice. I think that you will figure out the details and make it look even nicer. The general flavor of it, I think you've struck the balance very well, from my personal opinion.
One thing I did want to note before we leave, we recognize that the sign there on it's a vertical two-sided sign, Powerhouse, the maroon, you kind of blends into the building, but that would project, so you can see it from both ways. And it's humongous compared to what's allowed with the signage ordinance under. We recognize that, we know that, we're not gonna, and so we can work with that to get the appropriate time to get approval on that and make sure that that's within the bounds. That's the only thing I feel like we've done that's absolutely beyond the rules. I know you like it. It was his idea. And I think it's, you know,
Ask for
the
a variance.
graduate was our idea, and I'm like, wait a minute. I told John, but our sign was gonna be so much bigger because Powerhouse has so many more letters than graduate. And I'm like, wait, it only has 2 more letters, but our signs.
It does sound long.
It sounds longer, right? Yeah. And I do think we've purposefully, you know, as we moved through this process, called it the Yagna Patafa Humanities Center at the Powerhouse. I think connecting those two and not having it take over the identity of the power. People are still gonna call it the Powerhouse probably, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so that won't matter. And we're not into that with the sign too. We don't want to change that. It's always been the Powerhouse, and it should be, so.
Okay, well, any other reaction from commissioners?
I told you that I thought it looked powerful, and I think it still does, and I like the look. And a few things to look at,
Yeah.
like we talked about, but, I have to commend you because that is such a small lot, and you have done quite well. It's not easy, and the parking that I was concerned about, and having the bridge, I think I like that. And, we need that in Oxford, we need it, so.
I've been here 6 years now from Greenwood, and before that, Austin, Texas, and I grew up in Louisiana. And when I moved here, I told Wayne and we'd worked with Greenville, which had an umbrella organization, and it's just been so impressive here with what the Arts Council does. There's so many, of course, Oxford has everything for everybody, but I don't know how they've been able to handle all they do in that Powerhouse, in that cramped little office they have, honestly. You really do need that space, and it's probably one of the, a critical need, I think, for the city and for the, we're getting bigger every day, so you're just gonna have more and more and more people coming to the Powerhouse with all the other places, so.
What are you gonna do with all the stuff in the shed?
Wayne, that's your problem.
Half of it's gone already. We started
Oh,
cleaning
good.
it out.
Good.
So we did, some of the partner organizations, Theater Oxford, that we were providing storage for, had to get some storage space. And we have another, I will tell you, the city sanitation team is amazing.
Yeah.
If you ask for help, that stuff is gone, and they helped us a lot. So there's a little garage back in there, which was all of our event storage. So we are
like we're petering out. Anything else from commissioners? Staff?
I guess my only, administratively, and I guess Ben, okay, we can take this up with you, is just sort of next steps. If we make these changes, and do we go ahead and go for the final, or should we do and get it blessed, or how do we know it's, we have to go again?
Are you asking if you should do that before section 106?
Yeah, or, you know, if we wanted to represent this in a month for actual acceptance,
You
if
can
we
do as many
make these
complimentary
changes,
reviews as you want,
or
right?
do another complimentary, yeah.
You could come back for.
Because I would prefer to get y'all's blessing kind of, not, but, you know, ahead of time to make sure that we've made the changes you all want to see, rather than wasting your,
Yeah.
wasting time. Yeah, I think so. I think it needs to be, I mean, again, Archives and History is not gonna do anything with it until you guys say we're okay with it. And once y'all said okay, then they'll say, probably, okay.
Well, I don't think we ever say officially we're okay with it
Yeah.
until you get your final. I think complimentary reviews, you
Yeah,
get what you've gotten today, which is
Yeah,
sort of feedback.
but I don't think it sounds like we've got some work to do to get there. And, yeah, and just, make those changes, and then, I know you're not gonna tell me, yes, it's good, go ahead. But, I think we've heard what you all want, so we can get that done.
I mean, if what you're asking is, would you get in a complimentary review, would you get a roll call from us saying, I can approve this, I can approve this?
Right, yeah,
I don't
no.
think you would get that in a complimentary review.
I guess my point is, is it worthwhile to do a interim, complimentary review a month from now, rather than going straight for the final? Or, do people normally just come back with the changes and go for final, and then if you don't accept it, we just go back to the,
Unless there were, substantial
Yeah.
comments.
yeah, no, we're not gonna change, I mean, we're just gonna,
The only one I can think of is
Tweak.
the church on,
Episcopalian Church.
yeah, we did at least two complimentaries on that. And I felt like, or maybe we did three and it was one too many, I mean, so.
yeah, I don't think we need that much feedback. I think you would get tired of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come back for the vote, and
Yeah.
then if somebody changes throughout, we'll come back for it, then it's
Yeah.
just away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
That's
you all.
very good
That's
information.
great.
Thank you so much.
We're excited. I'm excited. All right. If there's no more business, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.